Ukraine's top military commander says that his forces are preparing for a possible new Russian offensive from the north. Oleksandr Syrskyi says that he believes Moscow could launch an attack from Russia's Bryansk region, which is on the border with Ukraine, not to capture Kyiv, but to force Ukraine to divert troops from the Eastern Front. He says that Belarus is unlikely to join such an operation, but that Ukraine is planning for every scenario. And Marina Miron is a postdoctoral researcher at the Defense Studies Department at King's College London. Good to see you again, Marina. So General Syrskyi says that Ukraine is preparing for a possible Russian offensive from the north. Does this fit with what you've been seeing?
Good afternoon. Well, generally speaking, there were talks also about a year ago about a possible offensive from the northern axis, and we see that the Russian side is trying to keep pressure on the north. If we look at I think 2 years ago, when the Kharkiv offensive was launched, again, to stretch Ukrainian resources. And so the possibility is there, and General Syrskyi in his interview has narrowed down the threat. So for Ukraine, from a military perspective, the Ukrainian command should be prepared for any possible movements from the northern direction. So we're talking about Chernihiv and Sumy region, which could be affected potentially.
If Russia were to attack from the north, what do you think the goal would be? I mean, are we talking about them looking to capture territory or to force Ukraine to divert troops away from Donbass in the east?
And I think that's the key point that you said just now, to divert the troops from the Donbass. And this is exactly the assessment of General Syrskyi, who said that he is not expecting anything like February 22. Rather, it would be more of a quote-unquote diversion operation from the Russian side, which would be launched in order to stretch Ukrainian resources. And given the fact that Ukraine has manpower shortages, diverting resources from the front would weaken Ukrainian positions in the Donbass. So yes, it would be the only plausible option for the Russians, because mounting a large-scale offensive in the north doesn't fit the overall stratagem of the Russian military staff.
How difficult do you think it would be for Russia to launch another meaningful operation from that direction? And does it have the manpower, the logistics, the equipment to sustain another front?
Now that we have been talking about the type of operation, and my assumption coincides with what General Syrskyi said, that it would be an operation to divert Ukrainian resources, meaning that it doesn't have to be a large-scale offensive operation. Therefore, in terms of manpower, yes, Russia would have the necessary manpower, and being able to maintain a very light logistical footprint for this type of operation, it could mount one, say, from Bryansk, in order just to create another pressure point for the Ukrainians. So for that type of operation, I don't think that Russia doesn't have the necessary manpower or logistical support. But for a large-scale operation, which has been indeed ruled out by General Syrskyi, it would be very difficult, because you have to take the territory and hold it. It's not just about launching an offensive. And that's a key point. And that would be a manpower-intensive operation requiring much more complex logistical layout, specifically in light of the fact that Russia has logistical problems right now because of Ukrainian drone strikes.
And Marina, we heard also General Syrskyi talking about how it's unlikely that Belarus will allow its territory to be used for an attack. And I'm wondering if you agree, what levers of pressure you see Putin being able to put on Lukashenko, and do you think that Minsk could still play a supporting role, perhaps in some other way?
That's an excellent question, because from my perspective, launching the offensive from Belarus, it just repeating the same scenario wouldn't make any sense. It would be too predictable. The Ukrainian side and Ukrainian intelligence services said that they have not seen any troop buildup along the border. For Belarus, it would certainly put Belarus in a precarious situation where there is absolutely no necessity from the Russian side to do so. And for the Russian side, it's important not to put too much pressure on Belarus because it is an ally. Therefore, I don't see that possible involvement of Belarus, at least not overtly.
Marina Miron, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.